RiskMathics Financial Institute.
Climate science is actually complex, and one of the most important things is it's just riddled with uncertainty. The science itself is uncertain. Let me give you an example of a bit of climate science. The Indian Ocean dipole is the difference between the temperatures of the East and West Indian Ocean. Now, in the East, when it's cooler, there's less moisture in the air, and that affects Australia. When it's warmer, as it is in a positive phase, you have the east coast of Africa getting much more rain. That causes floods, mudslides, and a lot of social upheaval. So, one climate modulator affecting multiple parts of the world simultaneously. And this is a key to climate change. So, a few years ago, we saw in Australia, these floods in East Africa and Australia burning. And that caused, millions of people to be disrupted, a lot of deaths and a lot of food problems. And in Australia, simultaneously, we had a lot of biodiversity loss, a lot of economic loss, and people actually passing. So one thing you have in climate is causality, but what you don't have is probabilities and correlations, the usual tools that we use for measuring financial risk. I mean, just imagine if I gave you two variables and I said they correlated in 2050 and the correlation is 0.254, would you believe me? I mean, how can one correlate that? So what you do have to rely on is causality. So here's an example of climate causality. A climate modulator, like an El Nino or an Indian Ocean dipole, affects regions all over the world. There are 33 regions that are, actually 64 now, that are homogeneous and defined by the UN. In those regions, you have different risks, and there are two types of risks. There's chronic risks, like sea level rise. They happen slowly and imperceptibly, and carbon emissions, and acute risks like drought, wildfire, heat stress. And both of those actually need to be measured. So they lead to what are called the risk indicator, or risk factors. Things like the daily freeze and thaw cycles if you were in Canada, annual mean temperature, or the number of heat waves if you were in Mexico.
RiskMathics Financial Institute.